We return to the party that Vincenzo hosted to stop the demolition, and Taec-yeon wants to talk to him privately. She asks him why he's spending so much money and effort to stop the demolition. Vincenzo claims that it's because he's falling in love with the place, but Taec-yeon is skeptical, and she should be. The next day, the tenants celebrate their victory in stopping the demolition, but they all know it's only a temporary measure and it's far from over. Also, did they do anything, or was it just Vincenzo? Agent An shows up at Gunga Plaza to spy on Vincenzo, and he begs Chef Toto to accept him as his apprentice in order to blend into the community, lying that he had his pizza at the party last night and it was divine. Even Chef Toto doesn't believe that lie, but he eventually accepts the free labor. Vincenzo meets Hong Yoo-chan to share what he's learned about Babel Pharmaceuticals' new drug, that it contains a substance RDU90, which is classified as a narcotic, which would make the new drug an addictive painkiller. Hong Yoo-chan is shocked that the drug has been approved to be released on the market and works himself up so much that he wants to go and burn the factory down. In the middle of the serious discussion, Vincenzo gets called away to start putting heating pads in the temple. What a multitasker, am I right? On his way back to the office, Vincenzo reprimands the snack bar owner's son and his friends for underage drinking. Seriously, what a jack of all trades. Agent An, or in this moment, Chef Toto's culinary apprentice, upon spying all this, gets so moved that the mafia consigliere is not only a devout Buddhist, but also an educator of delinquent youth. Hong Cha-yeon feels super discouraged since she got a mouthful from her bosses for losing and then for failing to find the researcher. And her psychic suggests that she goes and sniff around her father because it's likely that the researcher went to Hong Yoo-chan. He is correct. Hong Yoo-chan is learning all about the new drug and the trial process that it went through from his whistleblower. Hong Yoo-chan asks the researcher to testify in a trial, but he doesn't have the guts to. When Hong Yoo-chan meets Vincenzo, he's told that he will not defeat these monsters as they're not someone he can take down by himself, and he should stop now because he's reached a dead end. Hong Yoo-chan refuses to accept this as reality, declaring that someone needs to stand up against evil, and then he gets a call and rushes to the hospital while dragging Vincenzo along. They are there to meet his prisoned client, Oh Jung-ye, who almost died in prison due to her illness. She's introduced to Vincenzo, who acts awkwardly to see her cuffed to the hospital bed. That night, Vincenzo meets Mr. Na from Babel and tells him to order a halt on the demolition of the plaza for 2 months. He shows him a list of real estate agents that he secretly took bribes from. There's also evidence of an affair with a coworker. There always is, man. Mr. Na is sufficiently blackmailed and no longer acting arrogant. He pleads that he's merely an employee and he doesn't have the power to give that order. But Vincenzo tells him that that's not his problem. Taec-yeon and other associates get invited to drinks with top dog Miss Choi. A little after-hours bonding can help ease the workplace tension, right? Don't count on it. Miss Choi asks Taec-yeon to stand up and do funny impersonations. Feeling insulted, Taec-yeon not so politely refuses. When Miss Choi insists, saying that she should redeem herself for the mistakes that she's made for losing the researcher, Taec-yeon does a hilarious but very disrespectful impersonation of Miss Choi's eccentric Zumba moves. Everyone is stunned into silence and waiting for Miss Choi's anger to descend upon Taec-yeon, but she just laughs maniacally. After the night out, Miss Choi tells Taec-yeon that the 3-strike rule doesn't apply to her. It's a warning that if she wants her gone, she would be kicked out immediately. Hong Yoo-chan calls his daughter home, imploring her to stop the drugs from Babel at the expense of her lawsuit. He's worried about the cluster of cartels that will be created that will in turn make people drug addicts. To her father's disappointment, she tells him he's overreacting and dismisses him. As she heads out, she bumps into Vincenzo, who's also been summoned by Hong Yoo-chan. She tells him to stop filling her father's head with nonsense and leading him down a dangerous path. Vincenzo tells her that she's been telling so many lies for her evil employer that she's now blind to the truth right in front of her eyes. Their witty arguments are intense and satisfying to watch. Over drinks, Vincenzo brings up Miss Oh to Hong Yoo-chan and learns that she has only 6 months to live. Hong Yoo-chan tells him, if you want to know more, you should have asked your mother yourself at the hospital. Did you guys see that coming? I totally knew that she would be his mother, but I didn't know that the lawyer knew as well. And the way he just threw it out there is just so smooth and unexpected. It turns out that Hong Yoo-chan has figured it out a long time ago. His flashbacks show Vincenzo at his mother's trial getting increasingly angry as she's being sentenced, and Hong Yoo-chan can feel his rage across the benches. He also saw Vincenzo loitering outside the prison when he went to visit, so he's put 2 and 2 together. He advises Vincenzo to go visit his mother often before it's too late, and don't let his longing turn into regrets. The topic of regret between parent and child keeps coming up here, which becomes even more important later in the episode. Now here is where things get really wild. The next scene shows a gas explosion at a villa in Gangwon province. It's reported that employees from Babel Pharmaceuticals were in that villa for a company getaway and no one survived. Hong Yoo-chan sees it on the news and deduces that it's Babel tying up loose ends by killing the researchers, and he's furious about the total disregard for human lives. Hong Yoo-chan rushes to the location of the explosion and wants to see if there is evidence of arson, but the police obviously stops him. Vincenzo notices that there are men in suits spying nearby. He tells Hong Yoo-chan that he needs to stop or he will pay the price for his reckless actions. Hong Yoo-chan states that while the world belongs to the smart people who knows when to mind their own business, it's the reckless and stubborn people that save the world. Meanwhile, Chairman Jun has a meeting with Miss Choi and Mr. Han. He's super heartbroken over his villa, which was collateral damage in the bombing of the researchers, and thinks nothing of all the researchers that died. That's crazy. He asks Miss Choi what gifts she wants for joining the team, to which she responds, the Nandumbu prosecutor's office. Confused, Chairman Jun asks where he can buy that. Like, are they on sale? When he leaves, Miss Choi tells her friend that he's an idiot who's bad at reading people, because the other idiot who just left is no way the mastermind behind Babel. They then learned that the escaped researcher has already talked to Hong Yoo-chan. He's disgusted by what happened to his colleagues and is willing to stand up and tell the truth. How did they find out about this? I have no idea. Miss Choi tells Taec-yeon that she's off all cases that involve Babel Group because her relationship with the opposing lawyer, aka her father, is making it hard for her to be effective in protecting Babel's interests. Taec-yeon visits her father's office and vents her frustration at him ruining her promising career, questioning why he puts the needs of everyone else before his own family. She brings up an old wound of how he was too busy fighting injustice and allowed her mother to die alone on the operating table, something she'll always resent him for the rest of her life. Vincenzo finds Taec-yeon outside a convenience store getting drunk. He tells her he's having drinks with her father again, and she's welcome to join and make up when she's done moping. After he leaves, the store clerk brings out an umbrella for Taec-yeon, saying that Vincenzo bought it when it started raining and asked him to give it to her when she's leaving. She smiles coyly while she holds onto the umbrella, so okay, I'm pretty sure she's the love interest. At the restaurant, Vincenzo tells Hong Yoo-chan not to give his daughter a reason to call him miserable. He's hinting for him to stop fighting Babel. The ramping up continues as the escaped researcher finds himself in a deadly position. A police officer asks to be let into his hotel room on police business, and he respectfully agrees. But thank God he doesn't really fall for it and escapes through the window just as they break down the door. He runs barefoot in the rain and hides on a boat in the docks. He rings Hong Yoo-chan frantically, but the other is outside the restaurant having a smoke. Vincenzo sees the phone calls and realizes through the caller ID who it is. He chooses not to answer it. All hopes exhausted, the research is found by his pursuers, and we assume that he's killed as blood splatters over his phone. When Hong Yoo-chan heads back inside, Vincenzo asks if he's hiding anything. Hong Yoo-chan plays dumb and tells Vincenzo that there is old Italian saying that only a devil can defeat the devil, but it's not in his character to be a devil. He asks Vincenzo if he happens to be one because they could really use that right now, and Vincenzo doesn't answer. Vincenzo tells him that someone has been phoning him repeatedly with the contact name RDU90 and asks if that is the researcher. Hong Yoo-chan's expression changes and he rushes to call the researcher back, but as he does, a truck flies through the window of where they're sitting and hits Hong Yoo-chan head on. Vincenzo smashes to the floor, and when he looks over at Hong Yoo-chan through the destruction, he sees him lying there in a pool of blood, unconscious and presumed dead. Oh my freaking god, this episode throws all the punches and clearly differentiates this as an action-packed, emotionally stirring drama that's not afraid to take risks. Hong Yoo-chan has been portrayed as an upstanding, lovable character who has the respect of everyone, even Vincenzo. Given how much showtime and plotline has gone into showing the two of them bonding, I was expecting them to have a lot of time fighting crime together. He's also the father of the female lead, and their past and present seem complicated and unresolved, so there's definitely more to do there to reconcile their relationship. They can't have killed him off already in the third episode, right? What do you guys think? This episode also shows the ruthlessness of the people behind and working for Babel Group. This is not your typical white-collar corporate crime story, a little bribery, a little blackmail, or cute office rivalry where you take credit for someone's work. This is legit a bunch of killers doing whatever it takes to get what they want and stay in power. Welcome to the big leagues, guys. Remember to subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode of Vincenzo.